Did this corporation's fatal negligence begin on the night of the leak, or was the tragedy set in motion years earlier in a boardroom thousands of miles away? Stay tuned, as the answer will be revealed at the end of the deep dive. Welcome to Decode Station. Today we are decoding one of the darkest chapters in industrial history, the Bhopal Gas Tragedy. Joining me to peel back the layers of this mystery is our lead researcher and history expert.
Thank you. It's a haunting story, but one that absolutely needs to be told. Because the accident, well, it was really just the final domino to fall. Our sources make it clear this was much less about a single equipment failure and, much more about systemic, deliberate choices.
Let's unpack those choices then. So we're focusing on the Union Carbide pesticide plant in Bhopal, India. The time is December 1984. And the heart of this tragedy involves a chemical called methyl isocyanate, or MIC.
MIC, yes. And it's a substance that everyone in the industry knew was incredibly volatile, extremely dangerous.
It's essentially a poison gas.
It is. It requires the most stringent safety measures. And that danger is the critical context here, because the source material just hammers home that this whole tragedy was manufactured over years of corporate decisions.
Not just a single mechanical fault?
No, not at all. The primary cause was poor maintenance and the deliberate disabling of critical safety systems. And it was all done to cut operational costs.
And when you look at the evidence, it points to something more than just neglect, doesn't it? It suggests a fundamental double standard.
A huge one. The analysis is clear that Union Carbide applied significantly lower safety standards at its Indian facility compared to its plants back in the U.S.
Why? I mean, what was the logic there?
Well, you have to look at the time. This was the early 1980s. Regulations in the U.S. were tightening up. It was becoming more expensive to operate safely.
But they offshore the risk?
They offshored the risk. Moving high-risk manufacturing to a place like India with less regulatory oversight allowed them to cut corners they just couldn't get away with at home. It was a choice, prioritizing quarterly profits over human safety.
Banking on the idea that if something went wrong, the consequences would be cheaper overseas.
Exactly.
But if everyone knew how dangerous MIC was, how could a decision like, say, turning off the refrigeration system even get approved? It seems like an unbelievable risk just to save on an electricity bill.
It is unbelievable, but it happened. To really grasp it, you have to think of the plant safety structure as this layered defense system.
Okay.
But those layers were systematically stripped away for economy. I often use this metaphor because it just captures the recklessness of it all.
Go on.
Like trying to fly a jumbo jet while selling off the engines and the navigation systems for scrap metal, just to make a quarterly projection look a little better.
Wow.
In that scenario, a crash isn't an accident. It's an inevitability. It's built into the very structure.
That's a chilling image. So let's apply that idea of scrapped engines to the physical defenses at the plant. What specific systems were offline?
There were 3 key layers of defense that completely failed that night.
Yeah.
All because of neglect or, deliberate action.
Yeah. Okay, what was the first?
The first, and maybe the most critical, was the refrigeration system. This was designed to keep the MIC gas cooled, to keep it stable.
Right, to stop it from building up pressure.
Exactly. But it was then switched off completely.
Switched off.
To save electricity. It was deemed too expensive to run. So the most fundamental defense against a runaway reaction was just gone.
So the tank was just sitting there, a high-pressure can of poison at ambient temperature, just waiting for a trigger.
Precisely. And if the gas did escape the tank, the second line of defense was supposed to be the gas scrubber.
A system to neutralize the escaping gas?
It should have been.
Yeah.
But the sources show it was undersized, poorly maintained, and critically, it was down for repair at the time of the disaster.
So 2 systems down. What was the last resort? The final safety net?
That would have been the flare tower.
Yeah.
This was the last-ditch effort designed to burn off any toxic gas that somehow got past the scrubber.
And let me guess.
It was out of service. A corroded pipe, a cheat fix they'd ignored, meant it was completely useless.
Yeah.
So you have refrigeration off, the scrubber failing, and the flare tower broken. 3 vital systems. All offline.
So it shifts this entire event from an accident to what feels like a deliberate vulnerability.
It does.
So the plant is a time bomb. What was the small event that finally lit the fuse on the night of December 2nd, 1984?
The catalyst was shockingly simple. And yet, because of all those failures we just talked about, it became catastrophic. It was a water leak.
A water leak.
That's it. Workers were flushing out some pipes that night, and a small amount of water got into one of the massive MIC storage tanks. That water reacted violently with the heated, unstable MIC.
And with no refrigeration.
The pressure and temperature inside that tank just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
The whole thing spiraled out of control. And the release began around midnight. This wasn't a slow leak, you understand. This was the explosive expulsion of about 40 tons of methyl isocyanate gas.
40 tons, released into the cool night air over a sleeping city. The descriptions in the source material are just, they're horrific.
The physics of it are terrifying. The MIC became this dense white cloud that was heavier than air, so it clung to the ground. It just silently rolled through the city streets. People were asleep in their beds.
They weren't woken up by a sound, but by the pain.
By immediate violent agony. The sources say victims described their eyes burning, their lungs seizing. There was just chaos. People running blind in the streets, desperate to escape a poison they couldn't even see.
And for anyone unfamiliar with the scale of this, it's globally recognized as the world's worst industrial disaster.
By a very wide margin.
The numbers confirm it. Initial death tolls in just those first few days, they ranged between 3,500 and 8,000 people.
A mass poisoning event that is just unparalleled. And it's crucial to reiterate, none of the 6 safety systems at that plant were working properly. 0. The leak just continued, completely unchecked, until the tank was empty.
The immediate human cost was staggering. But that brings us to the next part of the story, which is just as important. Accountability.
Right. With such a massive systemic failure, what did the legal response look like?
Well, initially, it seemed like it might be appropriate. The Union Carbide CEO, Warren Anderson, was arrested when he arrived in India.
On charges of culpable homicide?
Exactly.
Right.
The Indian legal system saw this as a criminal act.
But, and this is a huge but, this is where the story of corporate power really takes a dark turn. Anderson was released on bail very quickly.
And then?
He fled to the U.S. He never returned. Despite being declared a fugitive by Indian courts, he never once faced trial.
That's just a profound symbol of impunity, isn't it? When the most senior person in charge simply leaves the country and avoids all accountability.
It's a complete failure of justice, a failure of international law against a powerful corporation. Anderson died in Florida in 2014. He never answered for the charges.
So the individual escaped prosecution. What about the corporation? Did they pay financially for the destruction they caused?
Well, after years of legal battles, in 1989, Union Carbide reached a settlement with the Indian government. It was for $470 million.
I mean, that sounds like a lot of money.
It does on the surface. But when you divide that among the thousands of dead, the tens of thousands who were permanently injured, it was widely seen as profoundly inadequate, a pittance for each victim.
Especially when you consider the long-term human cost. The tragedy didn't end in 1984. The death toll now. It's estimated to be over 15,000 people.
It's a perpetual crisis. The survivors have faced a lifetime of struggle. The gas left these permanent scars. We're talking about chronic illnesses, severe blindness, respiratory failure, soaring cancer rates.
They were burned from the inside out.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And the meager settlement could never, ever cover that kind of lifelong medical dependency.
And tragically, the disaster reached forward in time, didn't it? It affected people who weren't even born yet.
This is, I think, the most heartbreaking part of the research. Children born years after 1984 are still suffering from genetic defects and disabilities. The poison seeped into the community's future.
And into the land itself. The factory site was never properly cleaned up, was it?
No. Another crucial failure of accountability. The site was never decontaminated. To this day, the soil contains high levels of toxic waste that's poisoning the groundwater.
So decades later, the people of Bhopal are still waiting for justice, and they're still waiting for something as basic as clean water.
The environmental contamination ensures the tragedy is still unfolding. It's a living monument to corporate negligence.
It's a devastating story.
It is. It shows how one instance of corporate negligence, driven by profit and low standards, can just scar a community forever. Physically, legally, and environmentally.
So back to our opening investigative question. Where did this tragedy really begin?
Well, it's clear. The disaster was the inevitable result of systemic choices, of profit-driven boardroom decisions made years before the leak.
It wasn't just a mistake on the night.
No. It was a consequence that had been guaranteed. Guaranteed the moment the company decided on those lower safety standards, the moment they switched off the refrigeration system to save a few dollars, the moment they ignored that corroded pipe on the flare tower, the catastrophe wasn't an accident. It was engineered years in advance. It was just waiting for a small catalyst, like that water leak, to set it all off.
A grim reminder that choices made in silence can lead to the loudest tragedies. Thank you for listening to this deep dive. We'll see you in the next file.